Welcome to the Crypto Layer HQ. Today I will be going over Bitcoin and the recent strength we had today. So as we can see, we are up almost 8%. We bounced from 64K. Now we're trading at 69K. We almost hit 70K. And this is a pretty significant bounce considering the amount of weakness we've been having recently. We knew this was a point that we could end up bouncing from, and there might end up being some strength or consolidation since we did end up consolidating back in 2024 for an extended period of time, around 252 days. So since we consolidated for so long back in 2024, it's definitely an area where there's a lot of buyers and sellers. So there is a good chance we end up consolidating here for some time and potentially even bouncing and showing some strength. Another thing to look at is USDT dominance. We can see that it did reach a zone where it did act as resistance back in 2022 and early 2023, which was essentially where the bear market bottomed back in the 2022 bear market. USDT dominance ended up topping around this level. So this definitely acts as a strong resistance zone where USDT dominance might end up consolidating and even bouncing from this level, since it was a zone we did consolidate for an extended period of time back in late 2022 and early 2023, or around 490 days. So for about a year and 4 months, we consolidated in this zone where 8.5% acted as a resistance. So now we go back to the zone. First we wicked below it, and then we had a big bounce off it, well, a big rejection off it, and now we went to it again and rejected off it. So this will definitely translate to strength in Bitcoin as we did get today. Also, another thing to keep in mind is oftentimes in the bear market years, in March we do have some strength. If we look back in 2022, we can see during the bear market going into March, we did have some strength. We can see we did have this rally that happened in March, and there was a decent amount of consolidation and even some strength where we did from the lows rally about 26%. And even if we look back in the 2018 bear market, we did end up having some strength in February, and even in March, we did end up topping around early March. Of course, most of the strength was in February, but since this time around we had mostly weakness in February, that strength might be delayed into March, the same way we ended up having some consolidation and some strength back in the 2022 bear market. Some levels we could end up rejecting from if we do end up bouncing from this zone. I would say 73, 74K is definitely a major level, since that acted as support back in April 2025 and it acted as resistance back in March 2024. We can see this is a very obvious level that we might end up rejecting from. If we do end up managing to break through this level, then the next resistance zone I would be looking at would be 80K, since 80,000 is definitely going to be a big psychological level, and it is where we did end up having some very large red candles and selling pressure, and it is where we did first bounce off from in November 2025, and it also did act as a stronger first level of support back in March of 2025. So I would say these are the two levels to look off, but my base case is we will definitely end up rejecting off these levels. So we could end up having something like this in March where we have some strength and maybe end up rejecting, consolidating more. I do think if we do end up going higher to potentially this resistance level at 80K, that we potentially will have a stronger rejection, since I believe this will act as a strategical level. Lots of people will end up exiting or capitulating or seeing that they can finally get out of their positions. If they've been holding from above 100K, they'll finally see 80K as a glimmer of hope where they can exit without taking too big of a loss. And then there will also be a lot of people that are calling for super cycles, are very bullish, who might end up buying, and it ends up acting as a bull trap. So then when we end up rejecting from 80K, a lot of the people who have been calling for a super cycle might end up start to give up more, and once they see it back below 70K and maybe in the low 60s, they start to potentially capitulate more and start to give up more on the concept of the super cycle, and then that could end up resulting in going significantly lower, potentially to the low 50s. So I do think the higher we bounce, the stronger the rejection, and the lower we'll end up going. Maybe we'll end up going to this support level, which acted as a strong level back in 2024 when we were about bouncing around this channel, and also it did act as major levels back in the 2021 bull market. So it will be interesting to see how things play out. We did have some good amount of strength today, of course, on the weekly. That finally makes this week green. We were going into our 6th red week in a row, but now the week is green. Of course, there's still a lot more of the week to go, so we could end up still closing red, but after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red weeks in a row, I think there is a good chance that we end up getting potentially a green week and maybe a couple more green weeks and some strength, since it is unlikely that we just continuously have more and more red weeks. So definitely keep an eye on strength going into March, and don't FOMO buy local tops, especially when we are in a bear market year.